I'm delighted to be joined by an excellent panel here who we're going to be firing some questions at. But before I do that, I'm going to get the panel to introduce themselves to you one by one. We'll start at the far end there.
Hi there, I'm Seeta Halder. I am Head of Data Insights at the Nottingham Building Society.
Hi everyone, I'm Heather Dawe. I'm Chief Data Scientist and Head of Responsible AI at UST.
Afternoon everyone, I'm Jade Jones. I look after metadata data quality at Sainsbury's.
Hi everyone, I'm Martin Grant. I'm a Senior Product Owner and look at everything credit reference agency data in the financial sector, not only at Barclays but as a market leader.
And I'm Gary Moore, Senior Data Quality Manager at British Business Bank.
Okay, thank you. So at Experian, we're really passionate about helping our customers in their data quality, data governance problems. We're also working with our clients on their AI strategy. Now, what we believe at Experian we're quite passionate about is the importance of data and well-governed data as part of a very good AI strategy. Bad data in equals bad AI. Now, we understand that this is not always simple or is easy to actually have data quality program as part of your AI strategy. And so we're here to discuss the pros and cons and see both sides of the debate. So I'm going to start with you, Seeta. Come to you first on the end. Is it fair to say that Nottingham were motivated to start using AI early on? And can you talk about why and let us know about some of the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, absolutely. So probably over a year ago, the Nottingham Building Society had an AI strategy, data and AI strategy, and last year they really wanted to implement it. But what became clear quite quickly is you can't be artificially intelligent if you're done with data. What I mean by that is if your data is not in a good enough space, the quality's not good, the governance isn't there, you can't then go on to building AI and putting that AI strategy in. So everybody knows the phrase garbage in, garbage out, and that's exactly where we were. So we've kind of taken a big step back, and we are now actually building robust data foundations. We're putting something into place where we're centralizing the data. We're creating that data foundation for our journey to the cloud and AI.
Thank you. Jade, you're next. Thanks for joining us today. I know you're passionate about how important data quality is as an input to an AI strategy. In your words, if you don't get the basics right, how can we do the cool stuff? And I love that quote. Could you elaborate on what you mean by that?
The cool stuff, yeah. I think the dull fundamentals, as I call it, get a bit of a bad rap. You know, thinking about data quality, data governance as an input to all the cool stuff. It's not very exciting. You know, we're seen as kind of the prerequisite to it all. But I think the impact of doing the cool stuff badly through poor quality data, making decisions on the wrong kind of data, is actually much more of a risk than the impact of not doing the cool stuff in the first place. The reputational impact, the legislation involved, all that kind of stuff, it's just not worth the risk of doing that cool stuff in the wrong way. I talk a lot about data fluency, and I prefer the term data fluency because I think data fluency is the language of data, being able to not only understand it, read it, like you do with data literacy, but being able to discuss data, being able to interpret it and speak it. I do like to distinguish data fluency from being able to use Excel because sometimes those two things get matched up. But I think data fluency should give quite a lot of us in data a bit of an existential crisis, because if the business or our consumers don't understand data, can't speak data, all of this is pointless. You know what I mean? Everything that we do doesn't have an impact because the business aren't finding any impact on that. If Sandra in marketing or sort of Brian in finance find the value of our data, they don't understand it. The value of our data is zero. There is no impact to our data if they don't understand it. And I think in data quality, kind of moving back to that, we often forget, because it's quite hard to measure, that fit for purpose is a data quality measure. But if, again, the business, the consumer can't utilize the data, then a natural fact, the data is not fit for purpose. So data literacy and data quality are very much entwined.
Thank you. Over to you, Heather. Now, I believe you've literally written a book on this, yeah? Available in all good bookstores, I assume. Right, I'm keen to understand, have you worked with a client on an AI project when they haven't had a clear data strategy, and how did that go?
We have done this, and we do it now, and I completely agree with Seeta and Jade. You know, getting the data foundations good, robust, and fit for purpose. Not perfect. Perfection doesn't really exist anyway, and it doesn't really exist with data. But good is really important to be able to benefit from analytics, AI at scale. That said, that takes some time to develop and implement, and those processes take a fair while. So there's, we find with our clients, so that there's as your data steadily improves across your enterprise, you're going to have different levels of quality in different parts of your organisation. So, as it improves in a particular area, to look to develop AI, data, use it for develop machine learning models with that data, because the sooner you start to because developing AI using data science, machine learning methods to affect positive benefits in business is a real learning curve. And actually, the sooner, whilst your data is fundamentally important, but the sooner you get on the AI learning curve, the better. So it's and also some of our clients, we're developing AI with them isn't based on their data. So the opportunity there for them to develop AI, learn how to develop AI and to grow revenue from it, to bring value, savings, etc. from it, is there in addition. But one particular client in particular, they haven't got a data strategy. We're doing that with them, and it should hopefully help them as we develop both strategies with them to bring themselves forward quicker. So I completely agree, but just to say it's to get on the learning curve as soon as you can is important.
Thank you, Martin. You've had some experiences at Barclays with AI, I believe, helping data improvement and helping end consumers. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, so in the financial sector, and especially when it comes to data sharing to the bureaus like yourself and other bureaus, it's been a challenging 5+ years in terms of data quality, and with a lot of the industry guidance and a lot of things changing, it's been real focus on knowing who your customer is, and there's been a lot of challenges, especially legacy banks and data quality. When you have aging customers, you don't really know who they are because they haven't got a digital journey, and with the support of Experian and other sort of programs and softwares, we can really know who our customer is. For example, AI can predict what address is for that customer. For example, if they're sharing 10 products, whether it's telco, utilities, secure property or a current account to, say, Experian or another provider, they can predict and say, okay, 7 out of the 10 times this is their address. 3 out of the time it's something slightly different. So it can predict and say, please utilise this address. Therefore, we know more about that customer. We can offer them better product which suits them, especially when you think about first-time buyers, right? You want to give them their dream home. You want to give them their facility. And the difference of knowing more about them and knowing less can give them a better rate, therefore giving them a better product and making that end-to-end journey so much smoother, especially when you think about a digital onboarding journey. The more we know about our customers, whether they're on us or off us, the better, right? And this is where we sort of try and stress, fill in those forms better, the name, address, date of birth is so key to making your life in the financial sector so much easier and so much better. And I think AI is really aiding us with that, and as well as cleaning up data, because there's so many issues from, as I mentioned, from a legacy point. You have aging customers that, 70s and 80s, their onboarding journey was a paper journey, which is a massive concern. So AI can really help us understand where they're located. Are they now in a care home? Let's try and do a contact strategy to make sure that we can help them in their later life. And for example, that's just really been a massive challenge, not only for Barclays, but in the financial institution for data sharing for many years. And I think technology has moved on so fastly in that short period of time. It's enabling us to give customers the products which suit them and really aid them in their sort of financial life cycle.
Thank you, Martin. And data quality, bad quality of data is everywhere, isn't it?
Right? Yeah, I mean, it is everywhere, whether it's financial sector, telco sector, utility sector, NHS, pharmaceuticals, and for me it's key that we try and get that information as clean as possible, and the tools that Experian are providing can really help us on that journey and recommend what variables are key, and especially when it comes to knowing that customer and saying this is the pinpoint variable to utilise to make your end-to-end decisioning, and it's just key to making life easier for customers.
and sometimes bad data just causes embarrassment. Take this slide, for example.
Yeah. Apparently,
the two job titles are incorrect on the first two pictures, so apologise for that.
Heather and I have swapped jobs, but not faces. So, you know, and if you've seen the classic film Face Off, I don't want to go down that route, right? So, you know. But yeah, that is an example of bad data, right? And
right there.
We need to clean that up.
Okay, switching it up a little. We're talking about the relationship between AI and data with some examples of benefits and challenges, but what they have in common is the need for trust. I'll come to you in a minute, Gary. You're not getting off, don't worry, but I'm going to go to you, Seeta, for this one. We were talking beforehand about problems you experienced when the board didn't trust your data. Can you talk me through it and how you overcame that?
So yes, so when we're talking about obviously trust in the data, we're talking about obviously not just those using the data, but obviously we need to understand what that data is doing. So we had a slight issue in that part of the challenges we had is that our business functions were all using their data in silos. So obviously you're going to have inconsistent definitions, obviously nobody talking to each other. Also the way that as financial services and some sectors, you've got reporting into committees and things like that. So when you've got, say, finance reporting into one side of committee, risk reporting into another, that information goes up, again, separately, and where they join up is right at board level. And this happened. And the same metric, different definitions and a different number ended up, so two different numbers for the same metric ended up right at the top. Not good. Right? And that's basically where the business has turned around and said, you know, they're the ones who've actually sort of championed around, let's get the data right before we move to AI, whilst everybody on the board, obviously everybody has got an appetite for AI, right? It's those challenges that they're facing that they need to be solved first. So what we're doing, as I say, is building that robust data foundation, making sure that we have consistent definitions, making sure we've got documentation, we've got data dictionaries, but most of all, for the business to solve their problems, they need easy access to that data. They need to be able to use the data in the way that is fit for them. And basically, we as the data team, we are their enablers. So what we're putting in is to enable the business to do what they need to do. And also, we've got in the back of our minds is we've got that journey to the cloud. So we know that whatever we build is not throwaway. We're going to use it for, like Heather was saying, keep the AI journey in your mind as well.
Thank you, Seeta. Yeah. So, financial services. Within the financial services industry, it's not just important, it's a legal requirement to have trust in your data. So how do you ensure this, and how is AI affecting this, Gary?
Okay. First of all, apologies for the notes. I will forget something at my age. But AI is affecting us both from a supply and a demand perspective. So we've got a growing need to support large-scale initiatives that do include AI. So we've got to provide trusted and valued data to the business. So one of the things we need to do is continually enhance and support the systems that provide us with our data governance capability. So to this end, we're exploring improvements in Aperture, our data quality tool, with a view to automating more and utilising augmented facilities, particularly because I've got a small team that needs to deliver more and more. And one of the things we're looking at automating our ingest process a lot more. So would you believe, when we looked at it, our BI team spend over 1,000 hours a year wrangling with the data that comes into the business. So we're looking at using sort of the use of AI to extract data from non-standardized text sources, so that the data that we do have is of adequate quality before it comes onto our estate. So it's a cycle that goes back to the providers rather than us having to wrangle with that data. So we're going to save a lot of hours in there and use the BI team for really what they're there for, analytics. And the other thing on top of that, we're looking to improve our KPIs so that we can see our KRIs to see our risk and exposure of that.
Thank you. Martin, same question.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, I can repeat the question. It's about trust in data in the financial industry. How you ensure that you have trust in your data, and how is AI impacting that?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I think right now, with everything that's going on in the credit reference agency space and the FCA market study, it's basically a complete overhaul of how data is sharing and consumed in the industry, and we've got a long 36 months ahead of us, and there's a lot of regulations that are changing, and for me we've got to have the trust in our data to make sure that we are compliant with those regulations. And I mean, one of the core regulations, obviously we need to adhere to the principles of reciprocity, and as well as which also aligns to Data Protection Act, right? And we need to be having trust in our data that we're sharing, adheres to those principles, and as well as the up and coming changes from the FCA, which should take about 36 months. But the data, you know, not only at Barclays but in-house, as I've touched on my other question, is heavily improving. We want to cleanse it and clean it up more better, and it's all about trying to know more about our customers, give better contact strategy campaigns so that we can clean that data easier, whether that's via a digital channel or classic, you know, postal or SMS strategies to really clear that data to make sure that we're compliant. And there's so much that's going on in the industry which is going to really pivot how, from a consumer perspective, your data is shared, and therefore the whole scorecarding of your bureau end credit score is going to change, and the support of the regulations and the work that we're doing with Experian and the AI supporting around that with the predictions is really going to aid, from a consumer perspective, a positive outcome for you all, because to date there's all these different formats in data sharing. You know, we've got an Experian format which is the industry leading, the other competitors have their own format, data gets transposed, it gets lost, everyone's scorecarded differently today, and in all honesty it's a messy industry. And this is where we sort of took the past 4 years to review it all and really understand how can we make it better. And I mean, we've got no more than, you know, 36, 48 months to really get it right in the journey, and it's all about focusing on you as a customer and making the outcome better for you and giving you the access to that data so you understand it more. And then you can help us as a lender and the industry to really clean that data up, and therefore, as I touched on my earlier question, give you the better opportunity, the better products which suits you, your friends, your family. And technology is moving on a lot, and hopefully AI and cleaner data can support and help us adhere to those new regulations.
Great, thank you. So another thing we get asked an awful lot is around data governance, stewardship, ownership of data. This one's for you, Gary. I know the British Business Bank had some challenges by not identifying the right data stewards. Can you take us through this and what advice you would give to leaders looking to fill these roles?
Yeah, first of all, when I joined the bank, there was a project already in flight, and I think the first mistake I made was to make certain assumptions, which was a bit of a schoolboy error. I already assumed that the business was bought in. Boy, was that a mistake. The processes that we have, I inherited tools that weren't fully integrated between data management, data governance, data quality. And I think the functionality that we have in those systems as well, although they were okay for technical people, for the business end users, they're not that great. So we need to address that because that's affected buy-in from the business. And I think the company ethos as well. So the roles were filled just as tick box exercises with the data stewards, so they could say they'd done it. There wasn't really that buy-in, and there was an underestimation of the time that was needed and the knowledge that was needed of a data steward to be effective in their role. So, and on top of that, data traditionally with the business has always been the responsibility of IT, so it gets thrown over the fence. So some assumptions were made there that have caused problems, but we're addressing them. And some of the things I do recommend now are, be clear with your role definitions, ensure that roles of data owners and data stewards are well identified, that they understand what they need to do and the knowledge that they need to do that. To get the most appropriate people for the roles, I think one of the most important things is enthusiasm. Doesn't have to be technical, but if people have got the enthusiasm and they want to do the job, then that's more than half the battle. Upskilling and knowledge, make sure that your people are upskilled, trained well, and that they have the ability to pool knowledge as well. So give them the forums that they need to talk to each other, talk within the business, so they can get that knowledge pooled. Excuse me. I think involvement as well, so involve people from the business and get them involved in the project and making decisions and working with you, so that you're not working on behalf of them, and then they're getting involved in the delivery and the success as well. Make sure the steering groups have clear purposes and objectives as well, and they have alignment into senior decision making groups. And I think data literacy is vital. I think other people are going to talk about that later, but ensure that the business understands the impact of their actions with data, and they understand how to use data to its best effect. Stakeholders, obviously really important. One of the things that I'm doing now is lining up more with risk as well, so to give that bit of more of a stick as opposed to a carrot, so risk will come down on people if we find issues. And I think the last thing, most important of all, is people. Make sure you invest in people, that they have objectives and that they're built in to their performance standards, because that helps to drive engagement and it gives people opportunities. So I think people are the most important thing, because if you get the people behind you, then you're onto a winner from the start.
Thanks, Gary. You mentioned data literacy, and I know this has been a big focus for Sainsbury's. So over to you, Jade. When you have so many people accessing and collecting data internally, how do you make sure that the data is governed and looked after the right way?
Well, hopefully you can all hear me this time, because I promised I was saying some absolute gold last time. You just didn't hear it. So yeah, once you've sort of dealt with fluency and upskilling of your workforce, I think it's time to start thinking about making data everybody's problem. Everyone in your organisation will be touching or using, producing, engineering the data. So in actual fact, it needs to be absolutely everyone's responsibility. You need to give this sense of it being a personally accountable thing. Everyone in the organisation has a role to play, and it's just about finding what their role is and making sure they're aware of it. I think there is a strong ownership and stewardship. We were talking about stewards obviously just a second ago, and I think strong ownership and stewardship responsibilities need to be part of the culture. It needs to not be a side of the desk thing. You need to be adding it into job specs and all that kind of stuff, which sounds like a huge HR and admin cost, but it definitely is worth it, because when people come into the organisation knowing this is already part of their job description, you're getting people in who already buy into that vision and into that strategy, that this is going to be part of their role, rather than kind of springing it on them after that. In terms of approaches to governance, I think we talk a lot about carrot and stick. I think one is demonized quite a lot. The stick is demonized quite a lot. I come from audit, so I love the stick. The stick is my thing. I don't buy into the carrot very much. But gamifying, education, adoption, engagement, those should be all your go-tos. They're the carrot. Getting people to fully understand why they're doing what they're doing and what impact it's having is always going to make people do the right thing. They're going to look after the data in that sense. However, when you're looking after a lot of sensitive data, Sainsbury's obviously has a lot of very sensitive colleague and customer data, as with many of the organisations probably in the room. You do need to think about the stick side, which is where I start smiling, and we start thinking about really strong controls and governance and audit frameworks as well. I don't think you can have carrot or stick. You need to have a bit of a mix of both, but ideally not just stick as well, because people just will not do it. You need to have the kind of engagement with what you're doing, understanding the vision and the impact of what you're doing in order to make people look after the data sort of as if it's their own.
Thank you. And Heather, what's your thoughts on data ownership, and in particular the role that diverse thinking plays in AI product development?
That's an interesting question. And as this panel's been discussing, I've been thinking quite a lot about data ownership and some of the conversations I've been having the past few days and last night, because we're talking about data, and the data, Sainsbury's data, is actually my data, because I go shopping at Sainsbury's. So there's part of me in there. Likewise, probably most people in here now. So, and we were talking about that realisation as data about us becomes more used in the products and services that we use and engage with, the awareness that actually that's my data over there. So you get to a point of data as a currency, and potentially the data ownership will shift more onto the individual, and actually choosing to share your data and stuff like that. I think that's part of the future. And then it comes to, I'm very much in the sort of data science and AI space. So in terms of the ethics of these things, because as Martin was talking about, the ways in which data can be data-driven processes. When you know more about someone, you can help them more. That's really very true. I completely agree with that. what AI brings to the equation there is when you put a layer of machine learning on top, because that data, all data contains bias. More men work in the technology industry than women. That doesn't mean women shouldn't, AI should sift women out of job applications. So that's just, that's one example. So the AI brings another element of a need to be trusted and understood, and things like bias controlled, and reflecting as well on the people who develop the AI, the machine learning models. They have bias too. So that gives you an argument for why there should be a more diverse workforce, not only because it's the right thing to do anyway, it actually leads to better AI. So.
Thank you. Okay, so to wrap up, I'm going to ask each of you a very simple question. You've got 20 seconds maximum to answer this, okay? What's the one piece of advice that you would give to someone starting out and trying to evolve their data or AI strategy?
For me, I'd say involve the business. In fact, it's the business requirements. If you want investment, you're not going to get that investment if you're not answering and solving the business problems. As I said, the data is an enabler for your business. So absolutely, the business.
I completely agree with that. And what I would say as well, I'm going to say two things really quickly. To measure the value that the business change brings constantly, that will give you the business case for investment in AI, etc. going forward. And also, if you're starting out, start small with AI, and because whilst AI is it's about the technology, it's about the algorithms and stuff. Actually, it's really all about business change and learning how to embed AI and those processes into your business is really important. So I'm taking too much time.
I think my piece of advice would be empathise. I mean, data is second nature to us, tech is second nature. Outside of our little bubble, tech and data are scary, and we don't AI sounds really scary, and actually thinking about empathizing with these stakeholders who are like, my ways of working are going to massively change, my job might change, and actually understanding what it is that they're thinking about in terms of their fears. You can alleviate those before we get too down the line of them rejecting, changing ways of working towards AI.
We're down to in 2 sentences. We're out of time.
Just really understand the ask and the business case so that you can get your executives to buy in and really understand how it's going to benefit you and the organisation and the end result, really.
Really quickly, from me, start small, set the expectations of the business and let them know it's an iterative process. So don't beat yourself up if it goes wrong, which I'm guilty of. Just go again.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for joining us today, and thank you for the panellists.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.